there, my name is Pam and today I'm going to show you how to make this easy and fun Mario ? Notebook. This is a DIY bookbinding adventure, so power up, grab your tortoiseshell, and let's go. So first you'll want to go out and grab a few of these 9x12 inch 6mm foam sheets. Then sharpen your craft knife for the first step of this build. Seriously though, sharpen your craft knife. Measure and cut out two 5.5 by 5.5 inch squares from the foam. Keep your edges crisp by sharpening your blade every couple of cuts. The foam is excellent at dulling your blade. Okie dokie smoky, now we're going to bevel those edges. Take your ruler and place it along the edge and cut inwards at a 45-degree angle on all four sides. This worked out better for me than attempting to cut beveled edges as I was trimming the foam to size. Then lop off all four corners. You can use your craft mat as a guide so you remove the same amount on each corner. I then sanded down the edges and corners using a Dremel with a stone polishing bit. I then used the Dremel with a small sanding drum to make the indentations for the rivets. Basically straight down in the tip of this guy to create these little indentations here. To make the question marks, I made a template out of an image I printed off the internets. This image helped me to determine the size of my notebook and I used it frequently as a reference or template. Anyway, print an image off, cut out the question mark using your trusty knife, then trace the stencil you just made onto some 2mm foam. Now cut out those foam question marks, make sure to use a ruler to get nice straight edges. At this point I covered all of my pieces in Plasti-Dip to seal the foam for painting. But you can skip this step, I'll show you in a bit what to use instead. Clean out all of the dust or debris from the rivets using something pointy. I used the tip of my bone folder. At this point we're going to make some backer pieces to give the foam more integrity, which will help us out later when we bind her all together. Cut and trim down 2 pieces of chipboard the size of the back side of the foam covers, making sure to trim the corners to match. Find some yellow paper. I used thin cardstock from the dollar store and cut it to around 1.5 inches larger than the chipboard you just cut out. Then use an Elmer's glue stick to glue the chipboard to the yellow paper. Fold in the corners of the paper over the chipboard and then glue the corners down. Then pre-fold the edges and glue them down as well. Then place these cover pieces under something heavy to dry. Now it's time to glue the question marks to the foam covers. If you're smarter than me, you'll realize why this is a completely smooth brain thing to do at this step. Shh, spoilers. Take out your best crazy glue and using your stencil template as a guide, glue the question marks to the foam covers. Great job, smooth brain. Now if you skip the Plasti-Dip step, you can now apply Mod Podge to the foam to seal it for painting. I really need to invest in another kind of Mod Podge. To determine which color I should use for the cover, I took the 3 shades of yellow I had, primary yellow, azo yellow medium, and yellow ochre, and mixed them together until I had a shade that matched my reference photo pretty well. I painted the entire colors with the yellow I mixed using azo yellow medium and yellow ochre. Applying a couple of coats to the top and edges, drying in between with my heat gun. I then painted around the edges of the back where the foam would still be visible after the chipboard backers are glued on. I then used a lighter shade of yellow, the primary yellow, and dry brushed that all over the covers. Any non-smooth brains are probably noticing my mistake at this point. Let me show you my reference photo again if you haven't noticed. Yep, I forgot the question marks were white, and I'm still pretty sore from kicking myself over that one. So to fix this little mistake, you can A, either hold off gluing the question marks on until after you paint the yellow, B, tape off the question marks so you don't cover them with paint, or C, Paint over the yellow with many coats of white paint, which is what this smooth brain creature did. Lastly, you're going to scrape your pride off the floor because you are a majestic and rare creature, and paint those rivets a darker shade of yellow because at some point in your limited painting experience you learned about shading. Finally, cover the whole thing with acrylic sealer. Now we need to make the pages for our book. Take some 8.5 by 11 inch paper, fold it in half, then cut it down to the same size as your chipboard backers. Mine are 5 3/8 by 5 3/8. Then stack 4 to 6 sheets together to make signatures. Use the chipboard backers as a template to trim off all the corners to match. Clamp the sheets together and sand the edges. Ooh, look at that. It all fits together. Great job! Now use some tacky glue to attach the backers to the foam covers. Then put them under something heavy to dry overnight. Lastly, we're going to bind everything together to make a book. I created a 3-hole template that I'm going to use for Coptic stitch binding. I punched holes in the covers using an awl around 1/4 inch from the edges. I then used the same template to mark the signatures with a pencil and punch holes through them as well. As I said, I'm going to be using the Coptic stitch binding method. I have used this method previously and it is super easy once you get the hang of it. I'm going to link a video in the cards that has a more detailed description of this method from a previous video. A little history behind Coptic stitch binding. It is an exposed binding method employed by the Copts, who were early Christians in Egypt. This method was used as early as the 2nd century AD. One of the advantages of this binding style is that it allows the book to lay completely flat, which is why you see a lot of artists making Coptic stitch sketchbooks. It's also really hard to say 3 times fast. Coptic stitch sketchbooks. Coptic stitch sketchbooks. It's Coptic stitch sketchbooks. For this method, you'll need a curved needle to hook around the stitches as you bind, and some wax thread to prevent tangles. As I said, I'll post another tutorial in the cards, and if you'd like a video specifically on this binding, let me know. Once you've tied off your ends after binding, the book is done and ready to be used. I thought this would be a cute notebook for gaming notes. You can write all your cheats in there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this foray into bookbinding. My name is Pam and this has been Total Pamerky, the craft channel with a little anarchy. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button so we can hang out next time. Until then, have an amazing day and we'll see you next time.